Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Photography Tips and Tricks, your show for gear tips, inspiration, anything you need to get your photography over to the next level. My name is RC, and today I have Mr. Pete Collins with us with a great tip on how to be able to organize your batteries. Pete, what do you got?
Well, if you're like me, you've got a lot of off-camera flashes that you have, and what that normally means is you have a bunch of AA batteries sitting around. Now, if you're like me, you tend not to be too organized when you have just a whole bunch of them. So you charge up a group and then you throw them in little cases like this. In case you're wondering, you can get great little cases like this online. Just Google AA battery cases, and this helps me to keep organized. But however, I found that once I'd put the batteries even in these cases, then I'd walk up to my bag and go, are these charged or are these charged? How the heck do I know the difference? Well, this is a great little tip for you. If every time you put in a new set of charged batteries, you make sure all the terminals line up the same way, all the positives on one side, negatives on the other. Now, when you use them and put them in your camera, when you're done, you bring them back out, just make sure at least one of them, I usually for safekeeping, make sure two of them are turned the other way. Now I can quickly look at either end of the case and see, oh, they don't line up, this box is used, and this one, they all line up, ready to go. So it's just a quick, easy way to keep control of your batteries, make sure you have all good ones when you're ready to use a second batch, and you know where your used ones are at a moment's notice.
See, and that's one of the things that I think is great about photography. A lot of the times, people just think that it's about, just kind of pressing a button or looking at a subject. There's so much that goes into the preparation of all of that stuff that things like that are just absolutely essential. Thank you so much, Pete, for that. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a couple more tips, tricks, a couple of ideas up our sleeves here at Photography Tips and Tricks.
Hi, I'm Joel Grimes, commercial advertising photographer. I'd like to have you check out my new class on beauty, fashion, lighting, and retouching. I've discovered there's nothing more difficult than learning how to light beauty and fashion, and then, of course, the retouching side of things. I'm going to cover all those techniques. I'm Joel Grimes. Come check me out on kelbytraining.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to Photography Tips and Tricks. RC here. Now, we've got a great tip on the benefits of using mirrorless cameras from Mr. Bert Stephani. Take a look at this. Hey, everybody, RC here, and I'm back with Mr. Bert Stephani. Bert, what's going on, man? How you doing, bro?
I'm fine. You?
Good, good, good. Now, look, if you guys don't know Bert Stephani, let me take a couple of seconds to explain to you. He's a Belgian photographer. I'm going to just kind of do a little swiping here. All right,
sure.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. You're a portrait photographer out of Belgium, and the stuff that you do, things like this, are just absolutely beautiful. In the last D-Town episode, we talked a little bit about the concept of story and the concept of portraits, and not taking it too literally when people are talking about, I want you to have this specific look in mind. And I think that you do a really, really good job of telling good stories without making them cliche and making them, something that's very, very trite. They're just beautiful moments, and I think that you have a great way to be able to do that.
Thank you.
But let's go on to the technical part, because you said something in the last episode that I thought was really interesting. Your DSLRs, you're moving away from them?
Yeah. In fact, I think I shot maybe 2 or 3 times with a DSLR in the last 4 or 5 months.
Okay. Now, what are you moving to?
I'm moving to the mirrorless cameras.
Okay.
Currently, I got this Panasonic Lumix GX1.
Okay.
And the Fuji X Pro 1.
Okay.
And when we talked about storytelling, I think sometimes technique and too much gear can stand in the way of telling stories. Mm-hmm. And these cameras, for some kind of reason, make me more creative, make me focus more on the storytelling and less on all the technical side of photography.
Okay. All right, very cool. Now, preference. So take us with the GX1. So why one versus another? Do you have a preference, or?
They're both completely different cameras.
Okay.
And the GX1 is a very easy camera to shoot with. You can even put it on automatic, which I don't really do, but it is. My kids can take pictures with that camera. It's a very fast camera. It's almost DSLR speed when it comes to autofocus and everything, the way it works. So it allows me to capture moments, to be really quick and capture moments and be like completely blend in with the background and not be the photographer with the big camera.
Right, and there's a lot of people that say that a lot of the times using something like this makes you very inconspicuous.
Yeah.
Where you just kind of click, click, you're just a person in the crowd.
And that's the camera that allows me to do that and not just be the photographer. But sometimes you kind of need to look a bit more professional.
Okay.
And I shot as a test a complete wedding on just this camera.
Really?
Yeah, and the results were there. I was pretty happy, and the couple was very happy with the results. This was not a paid wedding,
right.
just to make sure, because if I'm testing, I don't want people to pay me. But I had this comment from a guy who says, "Who's that big guy with a small camera running around in church?" So there's an image problem there.
A lot of people don't talk about that stuff. That you know what? At the end of the day, it's hard. It's hard to get over that image problem.
Yeah, and I personally don't really care,
Right.
but this is my job, so I have to make a living. So if people don't take me serious, then I'm not going to make any money, and I cannot do what I love doing. So I was really starting to look for a step up, still a small camera, but you know, just something that looks a bit more professional, and that's when I went to the X Pro 1.
The X Pro 1. Tell us a little bit about that. How are you digging that?
Well, sometimes you just want to smash it into the wall, because it is. Sometimes it can be so frustrating. I've tested it. People from Fuji in Belgium let me borrow it for a week, and in the end, after that week, I decided it's a great prototype, but it's not yet finished. It's not a camera for me. But the day after I returned it, I started missing it. So
it has that kind of effect on you.
So I borrowed it another week, and I came to the same conclusion. But I missed it again, so I borrowed it a third week. So very nice people from Fuji, Belgium. And then I sort of got it, because you need to invest quite a lot of time into knowing this camera. This is not just a DSLR or one of the Micro Four Thirds mirrorless cameras. This is something completely different. I don't want to say this as an excuse to, because I think Fuji can do a better job on the X Pro 1. There's definitely room for improvement, and some things are, you know, they shouldn't be in there.
You know what? It's one of those things where it's like, I've gone on record on a couple of different things, but I will say this: like, I have shot with the X Pro 1. I shot with it. Frank Doorhof was here. And I'm glad that you said it, because it was the same thing that I ran into when the X Pro 1. When I first had it in my hand and I shot with it, I was like, this is great, but I don't like these parts.
Yeah.
And then I sent it back, and when I sent it back, I was like, man, I wish I had it. Then Borrow Lenses here in the United States, I rented from them for the Google Plus conference, and I loved it again. And then when I sent it back, I was like, man, I really wish I would. So it kind of has that kind of feeling to it. So I'm glad you kind of brought that up.
It's not the camera that I would say that is the perfect camera for the majority of the photographers. It requires a different way of shooting, a slower and more deliberate way of shooting, which is, I think, good to me, but it might not be good to anybody else.
That's a fair comparison.
But
now,
to me, it works.
Now, if they want to see images of this kind of stuff, where can they see images of things that you've shot with the X Pro 1 and with the GX1?
Well, I've been blogging around about those cameras and my transition into them quite a bit on my own blog, on my own website, which is BertStephani.com. And there's also lots of stuff on my Facebook and Twitter about that. So
that'll be great. So if you guys are interested in that kind of transition, if you're looking into transitioning from DSLRs into something like this, or maybe augmenting what you guys can do, portability and conspicuous, good quality. I mean, there are some catches, but thankfully people like Bert are out there to be able to walk you through the entire process. Bert, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Great being here.
Thank you so much, Bert. Now, hey, listen, we can cover mirrors, cameras, DSLRs, everything that's going to kind of get your shooting up there. But what about the background, right? You have your camera, you're learning your camera. How do you shoot with a wide background? Well, for that, we're going to go to Mr. Frank Doorhof, who's going to give us a couple of tips on how to be able to do just that.
Hey guys, today a very quick tip about something that a lot of photographers struggle with. Now, you know when you're on your background and you see some beautiful images with models jumping and their arms wide, I always get the questions, how wide are your backgrounds? Well, I'm using standard seamless backgrounds. So how do you fit your models on the background? Do you use a lot of Photoshop? No. The thing you have to remember, it's all about the lens. Now we have a beautiful model on set, and oh, hi Larry, how are you?
Not a beautiful model.
It is a beautiful model, of course, but I will show you the trick very quickly. Now, most people in the studio will shoot something like this on 70mm. Now, watch this. Larry, can you spread your arms, please? Now, I'm shooting it on 70mm, and I'm standing here to fit them all in. And it's a great shot. The only problem is, as you can see on the screen now, his hands are way beyond the paper, so he doesn't fit on the paper. Now Larry doesn't move. The only thing I do is I move all the way to the back, and I'm going to zoom in to 200mm. And now see the difference. Larry, can you do the same thing, please? There we go. And as you can see now, Larry fits on the paper. The option to move all the way back in your studio, so to have a studio that has a lot of space, gives you a real opportunity to let models jump, spread their arms, and be wide on the paper. And it still fits on the normal paper. It's all about the field of view. So that's our tip for today.
Welcome back to Photography Tips and Tricks. RC here. Now I've got a website to watch and a contest. The website that I want you to take a look at is obviously Mr. Bert Stephani. You can go take a look at him at bertstephani.com over here. And he's got a great portfolio. If you take a look here, you go to the portfolio section, you'll see that he has faces, fashion, business, random groups. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at that one section there, right? Some groupings of things, right? I thought that was kind of interesting. So an interesting take, interesting photography from Mr. Bert Stephani, the website to watch this week. Now, contest time. This is what I want you to do. I want you to go to the Kelby TV website. Obviously, we have a bunch of different shows there. The show that you're watching now is Photography Tips and Tricks. So you're going to go over here, and what I want you to do is I want you to find episode 25. That's the episode. Not 22, though 22 was good because it had Brandon in it. 25. 25 is where we want you to go. Go all the way down to the very, very bottom of episode 25. Leave us your name, leave us your email, leave us a website. Tell us something you want to see here on the show. One of you guys is going to get picked, and you're going to win the Rogue gels from our friends over at Rogue. This is a great way for you to keep corrective gels as well as artistic gels all in one spot with a beautiful tie to be able to take your lighting into really interesting places. Thank you so much to the guys at Rogue for that. But that wraps it up for this week. Make sure you stop by next week here on Photography Tips and Tricks.